The 8th level. And if you can't do that, seek the help of all man and jinn and the assistance of all the results of their shared knowledge from the time of Adam till the end of the world, as well as those ideas found in the books available to you about the Arabic language and its styles, written with the desire to imitate the Qur'an, or out of obstinacy by those wanting to dispute it. To say nothing of authoritative scholars, if a person of scant intelligence or an ignorant one even were to study them, he would declare that none of them was similar to the Qur'an. So it is either inferior to all of them, and this is impossible as is unanimously agreed, or it is superior to all. And this is what was wanted, as was mentioned above. Indeed, it has not been successfully disputed in 13 centuries. And as that was true in the past, so it will be in the future till the end of time. The 9th level. It says, don't remonstrate, saying, you don't have any witnesses, and we don't testify for you either. Go and call your witnesses and your partisans, and let them consult their consciences. Will they be so bold as to uphold what you claim disputing the Qur'an? If you have understood these levels, consider now how the Qur'an is miraculous in its conciseness, indicating these levels, silencing them effectively, and loosening their bridles, giving them the opportunity to reply. Understand too that human incapacity to dispute even the shortest surah is a clear argument from effect to cause. As for its being argued from cause to effect, it is said, Allah the Most High prevented man from disputing it. The most correct school in the latter question, the argument from cause to effect, is that followed by Abdul Qahir al-Jurjani, al-Zamakhshari, and al-Sakkaki. This states that it is beyond human power to emulate the Qur'an's elevated composition. Moreover, al-Sakkaki preferred the view that its miraculous inimitability can only be sensed and cannot be expressed or explicated. It can only be experienced. But the author of Dalail al-Ijaz, al-Jurjani, preferred the view that it is possible to express it in words, and we subscribe to his school in this question. The choice of surah rather than such words as Najm, Taifa, or Naba indicates the Qur'an's silencing them by answering the source of their doubts, namely, why wasn't it revealed to him all at once? That is, the Qur'an told them, you produce some and let's see it, even if only a single short piece. The choice of the word surah signifies too that there are numerous benefits in the Qur'an being divided into surahs, as has been elucidated by al-Zamakhshari, and that this unusual method contains many subtle points. The phrase, like thereunto, signifies two possible things, that is, the suffixed pronoun he refers either to the thing revealed, the Qur'an, that is, produce a surah like one of the Qur'ans, or to the one to whom it was revealed, the messenger, that is, get someone unlettered like him to produce it. If it is the former, it should be phrased misli suratin minhu, but it is expressed as min mislihi, indicating that the second possibility is taken into account. That is, you can invalidate his case with your disputing only if someone unlettered like him, the messenger, does it. It indicates too that the Qur'an's miraculousness could be invalidated only if disputed by a collection, a literary work, majmu'ah, that is, if the surah produced was part of a complete work, like the Qur'an. The phrase also allusively directs attention to the other scriptures that were revealed like the Qur'an, so that the listener may weigh them up in his mind and understand the Qur'an's elevated nature. The sentence, and call your witnesses and helpers if there are any besides Allah. The choice of call instead of seek the help or assistance of indicates that those who might respond to them and defend them are not non-existent, but are there with them and do not need to be called. The word witnesses comprises three meanings. Your authorities on the Arabic language, those who observe, witness you, and your gods. In respect of the first, it silences them by rebuting their argument that their own inability does not prove that their literal leaders lack the power to imitate the Qur'an. In respect of the second, it dumbfounds them by cutting short their excuse that they had no witnesses, for every outlook and way has defenders and witnesses. In respect of the third, it rebukes and derides them, asking why their gods, which they look to for benefits and to repel harm, do not help them in this matter that is troubling them. The genitive construction of witnesses and the pronominal suffix your denotes particularity and strengthens the first meaning above. Your great ones are present with you, and there are special bonds between you. If they had been capable of helping you, surely they would have done. It expresses the second meaning like this: we accept the testimony of those who support you and are your partisans, for they won't venture to testify for something whose invalidity is self-evident. And it takes the third meaning by the arm and mocks it, saying, why don't the gods you worship help you? With respect to the first, the phrase, besides Allah, indicates generality, that is, call all the eloquent masters of language in the world other than Allah the Most High. It indicates too that the Qur'an's miraculousness is only miraculousness because it is from Allah. With respect to the second, it indicates their impotence and confusion when they say, Allah is our witness. Allah knows that we can do it, for it is the habit of those defeated in arguments and reduced to impotence to swear by Allah and call on Him to witness what they are incapable of proving. And with respect to the third, it indicates that their disputing the messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace, was exactly the response of associating partners with Allah to divine unity and of lifeless, unconscious beings to the creator of the heavens and the earth. The phrase, if what you say is true, alludes to their saying, if we wanted, we could say something similar. It also insinuates, you aren't truthful. Your truthfulness is only hypothetical. Indeed, you only utter sophistries. And you haven't fallen into doubt because you were seeking the truth, but because you were seeking the false and you fell into it. Furthermore, the consequence of the conditional verb, if what you say, is the sum and substance of the previous phrases, that is, do it. That is, if what you say is true, then try to produce something similar. The sentence, but if you cannot, and of a surety you cannot, then fear the fire. With the phrase, if what you say is true, the Qur'an is confuting them with a conditional syllogism, accepting the opposite of the following phrase to occasion the opposite of the preceding one. A summary of it: if you were truthful, you would have disputed it and produced a surah, but you didn't and you won't be able to. One concludes from this that you weren't truthful, while your enemy, the messenger upon whom be peace, is truthful, and that the Qur'an is miraculous. So this obliges you to believe in him so that you may fear avoid the punishment of the fire. See how miraculous is this conciseness of the revelation. Then, saying, if you cannot, instead of, but you haven't done it, it indicates through the dot denoted by if, conformity with their suspicions, and through its denoting a condition that is the opposite of the following sentence, necessitates the opposite of the previous one. Then, in place of the result, that is, the opposite of the previous one, I mean, but you weren't truthful. It mentions the third of three successive consequences of the cause, which is, then fear the fire, to frighten, intimidate, and threaten them. As for, if you cannot, it's signifying the past by virtue of the lamb, not, and the future through the if, is in order to direct attention towards their past, as though it is saying to them, look at your decorated orations and gilded 7 hanging oaths. Are any of them equal to the Qur'an, or close to it even, or in the same class? The choice of do, make, rather than bring, suggests 2 points. The first, it infers that the source of the Qur'an's miraculousness and inimitability is their impotence, and the source of their impotence is related to action, not to the work. That is, the source of their impotence is their inability to do or produce something similar to the Qur'an, not the work itself. The second, it is for conciseness. For just as in grammar the verbal root fa'ala is used to depict the patterns and forms of the verb, so in the literary styles it is used as the summary of actions and stories, as though it were a pronoun expressing whole sentences and a metonymy for them. And of a surety you cannot. The future and emphasis expressed by lan infers definiteness, and this indicates that the speaker is confident and serious, and that he has no doubts concerning what he is saying. And this is a sign that there is no trickery or deception in what he says and does. The use of, then, fear, instead of, avoid, both express the same meaning, but al-ittika follows on after belief, while avoidance does not have this secondary meaning, implies as a substitute for the consequence of the above conditional sentence, the sentence, believe and avoid associating partners with Allah, which is a cause of entering hellfire. The definite article is used in the fire because it is well known and firmly fixed in people's minds, having been heard about from all the prophets from Adam up till now. It's being governed by the relative pronoun which, although such pronouns generally refer to something previously known, is in consequence of the earlier revelation of a fire whose fuel is man and stones. Before this verse, and those addressed had heard this. Thus, the relative pronoun is in place, whose fuel is man and stones. As mentioned above, the purpose of this is to intimidate, and intimidation is made severer by threatening. Thus, it threatens with the word man, as though striking them, and reinforces this with stones, as though castigating them. What profit or salvation do you hope for from these idols that are now the instruments of your torture? As for the phrase, prepared for those who reject faith, know that the position here required prepared for you. However, generally the Qur'an mentions summaries and general rules at the ends of verses to indicate the most powerful evidences for the statements made in the verse in question. Thus, what is basically implied here is prepared for you if you disbelieve, since it is prepared for the disbelievers. For this reason, the noun is used in place of the pronoun. Then, prepared, being in the perfect tense, indicates that hell exists at the present time, as was discussed above. Verse 25. وَبَشِّرِ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ أَنَّ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ كُلَّمَا رُزِقُوا مِنْهَا مِنْ ثَمَرَةٍ رِزْقًا قَالُوا هَذَا الَّذِي رُزِقْنَا مِنْ قَبْلُ وَأُتُوا بِهِ مُتَشَابِهًا وَلَهُمْ فِيهَا أَزْوَاجٌ مُدَهَّرَةٌ وَهُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. But give glad tidings to those who believe and work righteousness, that theirs are gardens beneath which rivers flow. Every time they are fed with fruits therefrom, they say, "Why, this is what we were fed with before," for they are given things in similitude, and they have therein companions pure and holy, and they abide therein forever. Consider this. The composition and positioning of this verse, like its sisters, has three aspects: the positioning of the verse as a whole and its relationship with what precedes it, the positioning and relationships of the verses, phrases, and positioning and relationships of the constants of the phrases. The first, between this verse's meaning and the previous verses are various relations, and different lines stretch out from it to those verses' phrases. Surely you see how at the start of the surah the Qur'an praises itself and the believers for their belief and good works. Then, with this verse indicates the result of belief and fruit of good works. And similarly, how it censures the disbelievers and condemns the dissemblers and describes their way, which leads to eternal perdition, then alludes with this verse to the light of everlasting happiness, pointing it out to them to increase their sense of loss at having missed that supreme bounty. And having charged the people, "O you people, worship," although this means hardship and difficulty and giving up immediate pleasures, it flings open to them the doors of postponed future pleasures. With this verse, it satisfies and assures their souls. And having proved divine unity, the principal pillar of belief and chief religious obligation, with this verse, it announces the fruits of divine unity, the title page of mercy, and preface of divine pleasure by pointing out paradise and eternal happiness. And having proved prophethood, the second pillar of belief, through the miraculousness of the verse, and if you are in doubt with this verse and indirectly with the previous one, it alludes to the duties and obligations of prophethood, which are to warn and deliver good news through the tone of the Qur'an. And having threatened, intimidated, and warned in the previous verse, in accordance with the mystery of the relation between opposites, in this one it promises, excites desire, and gives good tidings. Also, if a person is to make the souls of others submit and persist in obedience and make their consciences obey the dictates of reason, he will have to excite both the sense of fear and sense of longing by bringing together the obligations of frightening and attracting to right. For the dictates of the intellect are only temporarily effective, and there has to be in the conscience a permanent motivation and compelling incentive. Moreover, having indicated one part of the hereafter with the previous verse, so with this one it indicates the other, which is the spring of eternal happiness. Similarly, there it alludes with fire to hell, and here it explicitly mentions paradise. Now understand that paradise and hell are two fruits which point to eternity from the tree of creation and are the two results of the chain of the universe. They are two storage tanks into which the universe is poured, and two poles for it as it flows into eternity. Yes, the universe will be convulsed and shaken up with a violent motion, and paradise and hell will appear and will fill up with the appropriate matters. An elucidation of this. When Allah, may His glory be exalted, willed the creation of a world for examination and trial, for numerous instances of wisdom too fine to be apprehended by the mind, He willed the change and transformation of this world for many reasons. He combined good and evil and mixed in harm with benefit and included ugliness in beauty. He joined evil, harm, and ugliness to hell and sent them assistance from it. And He dispatched good things and virtues to be manifested in paradise. Furthermore, when He willed trial and competition in the world of human beings, and for there to be differences and change among them, He mixed in bad people with good. Then, when the period of testing closes and divine will commands that they should be eternal, He will make the bad people manifest the verse, "Get you apart, O you guilty ones," while the good will be honored and graced with the address, "So enter there to dwell forever." Then, when the two categories are separated out, the universe will be purified, and evil and harmful matters will be withdrawn from the good and the beneficial and perfected, and they will collect on one side. In short, if you study the universe carefully, you will encounter two basic elements, two long crawling stems like melons, that when the fruits of which are collected together and made immortal, will become hell and paradise. An introduction. This verse and the preceding ones betoken the resurrection of the dead and great gathering. There are four noteworthy points in this matter. Firstly, the possibility of the world's destruction and its death. Secondly, their occurrence. Thirdly, its repair and being raised to life. Fourthly, their occurrence. The possibility of the universe's death. If a thing is subject to the law of evolution, it undergoes growth and development. It has therefore a natural lifespan and allotted time of death. It cannot escape death's call. According to inductive reasoning, this goes for most members of the species. So, just as man, the microcosm, cannot be saved from destruction, so too there is no refuge from death for the world, the macroanthropos. Similarly, a tree is a miniature copy of the universe and is pursued by demolition and dissolution, so too the chain of the universe is a part of the tree of creation and cannot be saved from the hand of destruction and reconstruction. So, if not struck by a violent wind or an external illness, ordained by pre-eternal divine will before the end of its natural lifespan, and if its maker does not annihilate it earlier, there will be necessarily and certainly, and even according to scientific reckoning, come a day when the verses, when the sun is rolled up, when the stars grow dark, and when the sky is rent apart, will be realized. Then the macroanthropos will suffer its death, agonies, and utter a horrible growl, an appalling roar that will resound through space. Its occurrence, as is agreed by all the revealed religions, and testified to by all sound natures, and indicated by the change, transformation, and renewal of the universe. And if you wish, imagine the world's death, agonies, and its roar. The universe is bound together with a delicate, elevated order and clings to those wondrous bonds. So, when one of the heavenly bodies receives the order, be or quit your orbit, you will see the world suddenly smitten by its death, agonies, and the stars and heavenly bodies beginning to clash and collide. Infinite space will thunder and roar. On one part, striking another sparks will fly off as big as the earth or bigger. Can you imagine the awful sound of millions of firing cannons, the smallest shells of which are larger than the earth? For that will be the sound of its death. With the onset of its demise, the creation will be convulsed, and beings will separate out, and hell will emerge together with its inhabitants and matters, and paradise will become manifest, bringing together all the subtleties derived from its elements. If you were to ask, why is the universe subject to change and time, and so will be destroyed, then at the resurrection of the dead will be made eternal, fixed, and unchanging? You will be told, since pre-eternal wisdom and providence necessitated trial and examination, and the development of potentialities and unfolding of abilities, and the disclosure of the relative truths, which in the hereafter will be total truths, and the existence of relative degrees and many instances of wisdom, the human mind is powerless to pursue the Maker, may His glory be exalted, made the natures and dispositions of things different, and combined harmful things with useful ones, and interspersed evils among good, and He brought together ugly things and beautiful. The hand of power kneaded together opposites, and the universe became subject to the law of change, alternation, variation, and development. Thus, the Maker, may His glory be exalted, willed through His grace that when the arena of examination is closed, and the time of trial finished, and the harvest time has come, He will purify the various opposites to make them eternal, and separate out the causes of change, and distinguish the matters of difference. Then hell will be formed with its solid body, receiving the address of, "So get you apart," and paradise will be manifested with its eternal, stable body and foundations. This will be in accordance with the rule, relations are essential for order, that is, there is no contrariety between the elements and parts forming paradise and hell. There are only relations and bonds between them, and order is the cause of continuity. Moreover, through His perfect power, the Most High will give the dwellers of those to eternal abodes stable existences that will not be subject to dissolution or change. For change here, which leads to extinction, arises from the relative differences, that is, the imbalance between what is formed and what dissolves. But the relative stability there, that is, the balance, will permit change that will not lead to disintegration. The third and fourth points, I mean the possibility of the repair and raising to life of the earth, and their occurrence, since proofs of divine unity and prophethood taken from the Qur'an and Hadith alone are not valid, as it would necessitate a circular argument. The Qur'an alludes to the rational proofs of them as well. It is permissible, however, for the resurrection of the dead to be proven by both reason and the Qur'an and Hadith. For rational proofs, you may consult what we explain to our utmost when expounding, and have certain belief in the hereafter. Briefly, order, mercy, and grace only become order, mercy, and grace with the coming of the resurrection. The transmitted evidences consist of what everyone has said, all the prophets, and what the miraculous Qur'an states about its occurrence. For these evidences, as well as indications of the rational ones, you may refer to this subject in Fahreddin al-Razi's commentary, for he enumerates the verses that prove the resurrection of the dead. In short, a person has only to peruse the samples, examples, and similitudes of the resurrection in very many realms of beings to surmise from their diverse signs the existence of bodily resurrection and eternal happiness.